So about a month, actually about 2 months ago, um, we here decided to do a homestead in the backyard, and this is the original plan. These are the plants we were gonna start, and the ideas were to do a potted plant garden, a raised bed garden with the three sisters, and then we were gonna do this other garden with three raised beds with tomatoes and cucumbers and kales and greens on trellises. And then there was gonna be another garden with some three sisters. Here's a sketch for it: the corn and the pumpkins and the beans and maybe some other stuff. And a couple other ideas, okra. And a couple months later, let's look at the garden. This is what we have now. When everything's been set up, planted, there's the pepper garden, all in pots. This is the zucchini garden. Here's some more squashes. There's an herb garden. Look at that beautiful little altar. That's a little statue that, or some figurine, and I dug it up right in the soil here. Probably from the previous owners. So here's that bed. Earlier, look at it now. It's really come to life. That's a big cabazella squash on a trellis. Here's some butternut squash in the corner. There's also some squash in the back. That's a little back area that I've been using for composting. See, it's kind of in the space between the fence and the borders and out of the way. And that's okra coming up. It's maturing quite nicely. It's flowering. It's gonna produce really soon. There's a lot of peas in this bed. It's all the okra. And outside we have some cilantro. These are all different kinds of hot peppers. And there's a lot of cilantro out here on the rim. It's a little stepping stone. You can set your foot and look inside. Everything's starting to flower. Here's a petithan squash. It's got a little fruit on it. Okra, more okra. And peas, sweet peas. So far I've been snipping the tips of the peas and eating the pea shoots. Some more peas. It's a butternut squash. I don't remember what that is. Some other kind of squash. That's a volunteer tomato, got transplanted. Now look at all this. Grew really, really well, and I built trellises for all these climbing plants. So we see all these beautiful cucumbers that are all in flower, and amongst them there's a lot of other stuff. Here's a tomato coming through. That's a tomato that's an heirloom tomato. I started it from a seed that I just took it out of a tomato from the store. It's a nice path, and there's stuff planted along right in this gravel as well. There's a bunch of onions. You see that? No, those are all onions. Kale. That's a heirloom tomato. Cucumbers climbing up the trellis. These big, strong tomatoes. And These are some cherry tomatoes. These are cucumbers, some chard, and okra. That's a cantaloupe plant growing straight in the gravel. And peas, there's corn, there's some green beans, and kale, and tomato, and it's all growing beautifully together. Now this is an example of backyard permaculture in full effect. Look at all these beautiful plants. And I'm making use of all this space, so all this gravel, that's really good planting space. And here's some basils, they're coming up really well. So there's all this black stuff in there, and the plants really love it. And here's a pumpkin patch, but it's not just pumpkins. Look at that fruit coming through, climbing up the trellis. There's a bee collecting the pollen. Build all these trellises out of local bamboo. Some more green beans. And there's no soil here. It's just straight gravel, bamboo trellising, and there's a variety of plants. That's a chard. That's a cucumber. Now that it was just some weeds that I pulled, and then I brewed a special plant tea fertilizer out of them, and that's the remaining. I just throw it back in there for mulch. So the weeds are really helping out the garden. I didn't have much, well, I don't have any fertilizer, and some of the plants were turning yellow, and that was a sign for me that they need nitrogen and iron and some other stuff. So I just brewed some tea and out of the weeds that I pulled, and put it back in the bed. Well, it's looking pretty good. I mean, I don't see very much yellowing anymore. And even this here is just a little corner in the landscape. Is gravel. Look at all these beautiful big plants. That's that big one is cabazel squash. That is a little chard and a cucumber and some other kind of squash in there. I don't remember. So see, there's big squash climbing the trellis in this cucumber bed, but it's not just cucumbers. Underneath there's kale and chard and tomatoes, and it's all fitting together beautifully. Now let's go look at the other part. So here's another little, it was just a patch of gravel, and I was looking for places to plant, and this is the outcome. Look at this beautiful Three Sisters patch. Corn and squash, and there's beans and okra in there as well. Also, like, that's a cucumber. See, it's starting to flower. Beans, I think that's supposed to be lima bean. And then there's green beans that are planted with the corn. There's okra, butternut squash. It's producing some nice fruits. There's another one down there. And yeah, it's just look at where it's growing. Look at that soil. It's just straight gravel and sand. It's just straight gravel and sand. So I've been fertilizing it with some plant tea, and then we actually got some Fox Farm Ocean Forest fertilizer and spread it in there. And yeah, I mean, whatever we had, some fertilizer with fish heads from a fishing trip, with some juices from some plants, plant teas, and it's working pretty well. So let's go look at the other end of the garden. These beautiful bell peppers. They're still they're not full size yet, but it's so early in the season, you know, it's great to have all this fruiting bodies. Cayenne peppers, bell peppers, a bunch of jalapenos, and there's a yellow Tabasco pepper. These are yellow crookneck squash. Here's a better example. Some really nice fruit coming up here. Yes, you want to pick them pretty young, so we're gonna get it maybe one of these days. And look at these beautiful tomatoes. I really love the color on this one. This deep gold. I don't know the name of this variety, but it's so beautiful. I don't know if the camera does it justice, and it's all been trellised. It's been pruned. The suckers have been cut off, and there's all these different varieties of tomatoes. These are all different big tomatoes with plenty of fruits on them, and they're gonna be ripening soon. This is the pumpkin patch, and it's growing out of this tree planter. It's a crepe myrtle tree, and whatever was underneath, I pulled it out and planted all these pumpkins, and now they're in full flower. There's other things in there, cantaloupe, that's some okras that are going to go tall, okra, and the pumpkin is sprawling out of the planter, and it'll be great if it covers all of this gravel around it. There's some other kind of squashes in there. There's a cantaloupe, there's beautiful okra plants, this really healthy pumpkin vine that's just covering it. Oh well. And there's our garden. It's really beautiful. Cheers. Damn.